All right, so welcome everyone to our Empower Workshop. My name is Thomas Holloman. I will be your instructor for today's session. Before we get started here with our session here, I want us to start out with a quick activity, okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to share my screen. I have a quick activity. What I'd like for you to do is I want you to go ahead and click on the QR code for me that you see. You should see a QR code there. It's going to come with 3 questions, okay? I want you to answer those questions for me. Once you click on the QR code, you're going to put your name in. It's going to give you an opportunity to choose a color, okay? Or it's going to tell you what your color is, okay? And then I want you to answer those 3 questions for me. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to do that before we get started. Any questions about the activity? The first question is, what year did women receive? For those of you that didn't get a chance to do the game, that's okay, because you may not have that ability to be able to do that, but we'll talk about the questions anyway. So question 1, what year did women receive rights in the U.S.? Okay, receive rights in the U.S. Who can tell me the answer to that question? Somebody that maybe didn't have a chance to play but knows the answer to that question.
Believe it's 1920 because I missed it and it gave me the right answer.
Very good. Very good. That's right. 1920. The second one. What age does most airlines let kids fly alone?
I said 7.
I say 5.
I was wrong.
Yeah, it's 5.
There you go. It's 5.
Killing me.
It's 5. Very good. Let's go to our third question. Our third question says the legal age for having a job in the U.S. is 15. What do you think about that? True or false?
False.
False. It depends on the type of job. You can be 13.
Very good, Joy. That is correct. It's false. Okay, it's false. The FLSA, Federal Labor Standards Act, says that you must be 15, but until Joy's point, unless there's extenuating circumstances. I want to bring us back together and have a conversation for a moment. When you see those 3 questions, why do you think I posed those questions to start our course out here today? What do those questions have in common?
They were all about what's legal or not legal.
Okay. Legal and not legal. Anyone else?
There were a wide range. So I'm trying to think of what was in common.
The big thing we want to point out was that those are all opportunities. There are transitions when power is given to someone, right? So when we think about it, right? When we think about women's rights, women have been fighting for their rights for almost 100 years. And then they were provided with those rights in 1920, right? You have kids that are empowered to now travel by themselves at the age of 5, unaccompanied by an adult at the age of 5. Or you're thinking about the ability to be able to work at the age of 15. My first job was at Astroworld in Houston. I was a cartoon character. I was Bugs Bunny and Yosemite Sam. Right? So imagine how that feels to get your first check. Right? So these are all opportunities where you are provided with power. You are empowered in those moments. So for today, our session is all about empowerment, okay? Our ability to empower ourselves, empower others, and build a community of empowerment. I'm going to share my screen here for a moment. Please let me know if you can see my screen. Can everybody see my image on the screen?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Got it.
Fantastic. So we're going to dive into empowerment here. So what I want to do here is that I want to start out by letting you see what our agenda is like. For today, what we're going to do. Number 1, we're going to have what we call a reflection moment. Okay? We're going to then define empowerment. How do we define empowerment? What is empowerment's impact? We're really going to dive into self-esteem because there are studies that show that being empowered connects directly to self-esteem. Okay. And a lack of empowerment connects to that lack of self-esteem. So we're going to look at some numbers and some data that really shows the impact of not being empowered. We're going to talk about how to empower yourself and then how to empower others. Okay. Those of you that are managers or leaders within your teams or organizations, within your household. Okay. How do I empower others? And then how do I build a community of empowerment? Okay. Now, any questions before we get started? Any questions? I'm going to make sure I'm checking chat. By the way, for those of you that do not have the ability to come off of mute, you may be in an environment where you can't. That's okay. Please feel free to chat and I'll check those. I'll check the chat along the way to make sure I answer any questions that you may have. Okay, so thoughts or questions? All right, fantastic. So here's what I want you to do for me as well. In your invite, you had a student guide, an empowerment student guide. If you have an opportunity here now, go ahead and take a look at that empowerment student guide. We'll be using that student guide throughout our session here today. Okay, it was attached to your invite. I want you to take a moment to reflect when you were not empowered, a moment when empowerment was lacking for you. Maybe it was a situation where you wanted to go to a concert and your parents told you no. Maybe it's a situation where you wanted to wear makeup and your parents said no, right? You're not old enough yet. How did it make you feel? What did it make you think? And ultimately, what did it make you do?
I could go first while I'm reading the question,
Please.
I guess. So the first time I'm thinking of is I remember there was a certain age that I had to get before I could make a Facebook, before I could make like a social media account. My brother had one as he was 3 years older than me, but my parents specifically told me that I wouldn't be able to get one until I got maybe, what was it, 15, probably, something like that.
Yeah.
And at that moment, in that child space, of course, there's a lot of things that are kind of like gate kept from you until you reach a certain age.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes you feel like would powerless work?
Yes.
I know we're talking about.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Yes.
Because it makes you feel like there's nothing that you can do. Like those are just the circumstances of the situation.
Sure. Okay. And so that's you felt powerless. And then what did it make you do? What was the result of that at that moment when your parents told you that? How did you respond?
Made a Twitter.
So much for sharing. Now, I'm gonna take one more here. Bobby, you have your hand up here.
I got past back when I first got into the aerospace and defense industry many years ago. About a year and a half in, I received opportunity for promotion. At least I thought. And but once I got into it, I ended up getting passed over, and it involved relocation, some other things. So I ended up not getting the promotion, which was a blessing in disguise. But what it did for me was I was upset that I didn't get the promotion. But I went back to the drawing board, and that's what actually prompted me to go back to school to go back and get my MBA. Yes. Was because I didn't want to, because the person that ultimately got the promotion had a little bit more experience, but they had their MBA. And so that was motivation for me to go back and work on getting my master's. And because I didn't want to be put in that position again, I wanted to be in a position of control where I could dictate the opportunities that I get and not let somebody else tell me, essentially what my value is, what my value is not. Mm-hmm. And so, so it was, I use that as motivation.
Okay. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that's the big difference about adults, right? When we feel that lack of empowerment, okay, we have the mental fortitude in a lot of instances to be able to use that as fuel, right? What does T.I. say, right? Adding fuel to my fire, motivation, right? So as an adult, we could take those things, but we're going to talk about the impact of kids in just a moment when they feel that lack of empowerment, kind of like what Alon just talked about, feeling that lack of empowerment. It can go a different way as adults too. If I have low self-esteem as an adult and I don't have that same, that same strength within me to overcome that, it can really have a negative impact. So let's look at the definition of empowerment. Okay, can I have someone to read this definition for me, please?
Defining empowerment, the act or action of empowering someone or something, the granting of the power, right, or authority to perform various acts or duties.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Trina. So let's take a look at some alarming stats, okay? Really some data to back up. We talk about empowerment and its impact. Look at this stat for me. Approximately 85% of people worldwide, that's adults and adolescents, have low self-esteem. Low self-esteem is linked to violent behavior, school dropout rates, low academic achievements, and unfortunately, the worst case of it all, school shootings. Okay. By age 17, 78% of girls are unhappy with their bodies. 75% of girls with low self-esteem report engaging in negative behavior like cutting, bullying, eating disorders, etc. When you see numbers like this, I know I have a few educators online here, so I would love to be interested in hearing your thoughts. When you see these numbers, what sticks out to you? What stands out to you?
So I have a question, Mr. Holloman. Please. I'm curious to know what is the year of the percentage. Is it current? Is it within the last 5 years?
Excellent question.
Because that would make a difference, because we do have social media, and so many youth have access to social media. You would probably be shocked that even pre-Kers have cell phones and know how to get on Instagram, Facebook, and so they mimic that. So I think that is one reason why so many youth fall into this category of depression, bullying, because that's what they see day in and day out, and they compare themselves to other people that they do not know of what quote unquote norm is.
Right.
And so they try to match that.
Yeah. That is such a great point, right, Joy? It's like those rappers you see on these videos. You're thinking they super rich as a kid, but then you realize it's nothing but paper money when you become an adult, right? But you see
the jewelry is on loan.
And the jury is on loan.
Oh, right? Really?
Wow. But Joy, that is a great point, though.
So one thing that I do notice about these numbers is that they are extremely high. It's shocking that over 70% of people seemingly worldwide are dealing with low self-esteem. That's shocking to me.
Yeah.
And these numbers, and absolutely, Trinity, these numbers are from Psychology Today in a poll that was taken in 2022, Joy, I think, to make sure I answered your question there. But absolutely, these numbers are very alarming, right? And so getting into some things that we can do, we talked about the impact these numbers have, right? And Joy, you did a great job explaining why some of these numbers look the way they do, right? You talked about the fact of being able to see somebody else, keeping up with the Joneses, if you will, right? That feeling of not having and wanting to have what others have. I know that feeling. I've been in that situation before, where you do hate that you don't have what others have. And so that can be tough and low self-esteem. Let's take a look at what empowerment can do, the power of empowerment. It says when children are empowered, they gain self-esteem and more confidence. They feel valued and able to influence their lives and their futures. Think about that for a moment. When you feel empowered, you feel the ability to be able to really control your future. You have the confidence to be able to do that.
Yes, I agree.
Please. Any other thoughts on that?
Well, in my line of work, I see, in some of the trainings that I do and some of the studies that I've done is, children when they're isolated and not feeling support from family or just love, they seek it other places. They seek it, sometimes from their teachers, their educators, especially these babies, and you hear teachers talking about that. I mean, like you said, we have some educators on here on the meeting, but just the isolation that children are feeling, not that support and that love that they yearn for could, lower that self-esteem. But, being there for your children could help that. Being there for other children. Sometimes we have to go aboard, from away from our children in our, maybe our family or our neighborhood and be supportive to kids that don't have that.
I love that. Absolutely. I mean, when we think about it, and I'll raise my hand, how many times do we tell our kids no on something and we think about the future impact of that no?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, sometimes I have a 6-year-old grandbaby, Sage, I may say no about something, but am I really thinking about the impact? Or in some instances, when you tell your child, no, they can't have a Facebook account, are you thinking about the impact that it can have on them at an age where all their friends have things, right? All their friends are doing things, but I'm not. So how does that make me feel? Then what's the reaction that I'm going to have with that? And how's that going to impact my future? How often as parents do we think about that?
I think about it. I do think about it probably too much.
Me too, Trina. Or did. Yeah.
Yeah. I understand as parents, we do have to say no, though, right? I mean, we're parents. We can't always say yes. So we do have to gauge and control, some of the things that we want our kids exposed to at certain ages, but it does have an impact.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go to our second thing. And I want you to really think about this. And before I go to this thing, I want to take a step back for a moment. I want you all to think back to the stories that you shared around lack of empowerment. Okay. And I want you to use your chat for me if you can. In that instance, when you felt a lack of empowerment, what are some of the missing elements there? Had they been present in those moments, would have made you feel empowered.
Knowing the why behind the action, it can also be empowering. Because if you're told no, but you don't know why you're being told no, it can put you in a space where you feel like you don't have any power if you're not informed about the reasoning.
That's very true.
I love that, Trina. Thank you. Bobby says better open communication.
That's essentially what Trina just said in a more eloquent way.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
agree. Because I said Trina nailed it, and Bobby, I love it too. So yeah.
Yeah. Open communication. Absolutely. It makes a difference. Any others? What elements there, had they been present, would have made you feel more empowered in those moments that matter?
Again, like Trina and Bobby just said, I mean, I just think that just sort of wrapped it up. And Alon said transparency. That's all that nutshell. I mean, because I like to work with, when you consider values, integrity is important to me. That's just almost at the top. So, and all of that just fits in the nutshell with, everything they said. That's me. Just everything all three of them said, just really nailed it all.
I love it. No, thank you for that. So let's get into some more, because you all share some great points. So here's what I want to do now. I want to talk about some more, because you all gave some great examples. You talk about communication. You're talking about, transparency, being more open, providing options. Those are some great ways to empower. I want to provide a few more. Okay, going to drill down a little bit more when it comes to empowering someone. So how to empower? We're going to start out by talking about entrusting with authority. When you hear entrusting with authority, what do you think we mean by that? Entrusting with authority.
Giving you the option to make decisions for yourself.
Yes.
And
Giving
for
you the
others.
options to make decisions for yourself. Any others?
Being put in a position of power.
Being put in that position, being put on that mantle, right? What else?
Right. I would say trust.
Mm.
I love it. Yes, because putting you on that, if I'm going to give you this, I'm trusting that you are going to live up to the mantle that I'm putting you on, right? We trust you with this authority. So no, I love that. It has to be some trust on my side. I share a quick story with y'all that y'all might get a kick out of this. So I purchased some snack cakes and honey buns and stuff for Sage in the morning so that she can have a quick little snack before she goes to school. And so every morning she always asks me, Pop, can I have a honey bun? Can I have a cinnamon roll or whatever the case may be? I said, sure, you can go in there and get it. We have our own little secret stash that we won't show Yaya. Okay, it's just for me and Sage. Okay, and so the other day she said, well, Pop, can I stop asking and can I just get one? So I said, sure, I'm granting her the power, right? So I brought some more snack cakes the other day and I said, okay, Sage, now these are Yaya's, so you can't eat these lemon buns. These lemon buns are Yaya's, okay? You have to ask us before you get these, but I'm gonna put them in a secret stash. I'm trusting that she won't eat them, okay? So 2 days later, she comes home and she says, Pop, I want to try some of the other ones. I've tried the lemon ones. I look in there and there's only one left. I said, she only asked me once for a lemon cake. It's sort of been 8. I said, Sage, did you eat all the lemon cakes? Now tell me the truth. Did you eat them? Yes, Pop, I did. I said, well, Sage, so now that means I'm gonna have to take away your ability to just come up here and get snack cakes. Now you're gonna have to ask Pop. So I had to take away the authority that I gave her. Okay. Because she didn't live up to her end of the bargain. And so going back to entrusting with authority, okay, as leaders, we grant that authority with an amount of trust, right? Knowing that sometimes that trust may be broken, whatever the case may be there. Okay, so absolutely, that's important. Allowed to make changes. Think about that for a moment. When you entrust with somebody authority, you have to let them customize, let them, really create their own when it comes to that responsibility. So if I'm in the business world and you're giving me this project, then how do I make it my own? Right? I may want to have meetings my way. I may want to do readouts my way. I may want to report things in a different style than maybe someone else did. As a leader, I have to allow you to make it your own. Any other thoughts around entrusting with authority? Would you add anything to our list?
I think it comes with a sense of accountability as well, for that person that's being entrusted. Like it's a level of accountability that comes with that.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk about accountability in just a moment. You're absolutely right. Accountability.
I didn't look to my right and see the last point on the slide.
That's okay. No, you're fine because you're right though. When I get ready, Bobby, to think about entrusting someone or granting authority to someone, I need to recognize who I'm giving it to. I gave authority to a 6-year-old kid and some snack cakes. Part of that is on me. That's just not on Sage. She's 6. So what do I expect her to do with a limitless amount of snack cakes, right? So part of that is on the leader to maybe put in some things, put in some framework, put in some parameters, but give her the flexibility. But it's still my job to understand my workforce, understand who I'm giving, who I'm granting authority to, and then putting those things in place to help them succeed, not fail. Her failure was part of my fault too. So So absolutely, we have to be accountable to that. So
Yes.
Bobby, that was an excellent point. Okay, let's go to equip with context. Okay, we talk about equip with context. We talk about success and failure. Right? What does success look like? What does failure look like? I need to know what that looks like. Okay, what are my challenges? Am I going to have to what does my budget looks like? What do my resources look like? How often, who are my key stakeholders, and how often do I have to report? Okay, so all those things are essential to being equipped with context, right? Anything else? Would you add anything to our list here with regards to equipping with context, making sure I have everything I need to be successful?
No.
Okay. All right. So let's go to power, protect, and provide. Okay. That means as a leader, I need to clear roadblocks. Okay. What are some of the roadblocks that may be in the way? If there's budget constraints, how can I add more funding? Right? If there are other roadblocks in the way with regards to permits, licensing agreements, all these other type of things, right? How do I get those things out the way so that you can perform to your very best? Okay. Coaching and feedback. My job as a leader is to make sure I'm providing coaching and feedback, right? How can I get you better, right? Being honest, being open, providing coaching and feedback. Encourage risk taking. Again, in order for you to grow, you're going to have a certain amount of risk. So I need to be able to encourage that risk taking, understanding that sometimes I have to provide cover. You may take risk and it fails. I may have to take the bullet for that. I may take the hit for that. That's okay. All right. Because part of your development and part of me helping develop you is for me to be able to stand in the way of some of those so that you continue to grow and develop. And then finally, recognition. When you do good, hold you up, right? Hold you up on a pedestal. Yes. Make sure you're being recognized for the great things you're doing to create opportunities for advancement for yourself. Would you all add anything to our list here? What do you all think about power, protect, and provide?
I like it. A lot of the stuff I was thinking of are on this list.
Yeah, it's good. Everything.
Any others? Let me check my chat here, make sure I'm good. Okay.
I think a really important part of the power, protect, and provide is the coaching and feedback, because a lot of times you can give instruction and that does not encompass coaching. And if you don't get any feedback, you really don't know where you stand. You only have your interpretation of where you stand. But feedback will help you to look inside and grow and branch out. Because if you think you're doing it right, but the people that you're trying to empower don't feel empowered and don't feel coached, but you don't initiate feedback, then you're kind of stuck in a power position without really passing on the ability to empower others. You have to be open to feedback, and that can be difficult. Especially when you're in a position of power or a leadership position, it can be very difficult to accept feedback, but it's the only way that you'll really grow and be able to expand whatever thought process you have.
Yeah, that's good, Trina. And just to piggyback off of what Trina said, too, and once you get that feedback, do that self-reflection. Self, and get to know yourself is one thing, and doing that self-reflection, and then challenge yourself on how do I overcome these barriers, because solely it's up to you as a leader to know how to overcome those barriers. So in your coaching and all, you know how to tell them, because they're going to hit that roadblock too.
That's right.
and you got to help them. And, you know, modeling the way is something that I really, truly believe in, because when you do that, they see what you
That's
you
right.
know, and they're going to, and as long as you're modeling that way for them, they're going to follow it. So that's all part of incorporating good leadership as well. You know, showing that you can overcome those obstacles through the feedback, like Trina was saying. You have to have that to grow.
I love it. Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's tough. It's tough, but you need it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to.
That's right. Thank you so much for sharing. I love that. And then lastly, accountability, right? Kind of what Bobby talked about earlier. As that person that is asking, hey, I'm raising my hand. Hey, I want this leadership position. I want this power. Now, as a leader, I need to hold you accountable. You raise your hand, you want it, or I give you this opportunity, you accepted it. You need to be held accountable, right? You need to develop your own style. So what does my style look like, right? You have to be able to develop your own style. And you have to know, how do you lead? What's comfortable for you? So that's important as well. Dorita just talked about self-reflection is key, right? Taking a moment, stepping back, understanding who I am, what's my leadership style? How can I connect to people in a way that people will follow me, right? You're going to have to spend some moment in reflection, understanding your style, trying out different things, how you connect best to people so that people will then follow your lead so that you can be successful. You have to have a we versus me mentality, right?
Yes.
It has to have that team element. You have to think about that it's that team, not just you. As an individual contributor, yes. But when you're in that leadership position, or when you have a team around you that the success of the whole project depends on you, you're going to really have to think of we more than me. And then again, you have to own it. And sometimes owning it means that it makes you feel like you're part of the problem. But in order to get the solution, there has to be a problem there. Or in some instances, there is instances where you're starting out with this new project, you have to feel like, although you work for a company, although you're giving these results from an organization, a company as a whole, you have to feel like this is mine. Yeah. Okay, this little piece of the puzzle I own, and I have to be accountable to it.
Yes.
Will you add anything to that? Any thoughts, opinions on that?
Mr. Holloman, you nailed it right there. You wrapped it up. That's, yeah.
Awesome.
Mr. Tiger Holloman.
Awesome. Thank you all so much.